Great, thanks a lot, everyone. It's been a pretty amazing morning of content so far, and hopefully we can wrap things up going into lunch relatively smoothly and with a bit of a bang. So what we'll be talking about for this panel is NaaS and delivering on a NaaS experience and unlocking new revenue opportunities from NaaS. And as a quick introduction to myself, just before I bring out the panelists, I'm one of STL Partners' consulting directors, and I lead our work in NaaS and network APIs. And we do see NaaS as a pretty fundamental strategic shift for the telecoms industry in driving towards a new business model. And Paul mentioned it even previously in that session, this move towards more platform thinking and platform theory, and others will talk about the move towards TechCo, we see as, again, essential foundation of NaaS and the NaaS business model. So there's two things that we'll really be trying to unlock and talk about within this panel session. There's the kind of why of NaaS. Why are we actually investing in this? Why do we think it's important? And why do we see it as a strategic shift? And also then the how, because we've got a pretty esteemed panel of operators here who can talk about what they've been doing and the learnings and the successes, I suppose, that they've encountered and that they can share with you. So those are the two things we'll be looking to cover. And with that, I'll invite Franck, Salma, Antonella, and Shashi to the stage. So I thought we could kick off with just a quick round of intros, and rather than me bumble my way through it, probably makes sense for each of you to do it individually. So Franck, starting with you.
Yeah, so I'm Franck. I'm part of the Orange Wholesale International Organization within the Orange Group, where I'm leading the product marketing team and the business development.
Yeah, Salma from Bell Canada, leading the product management team for connectivity services, more especially for the enterprise segment.
Same as her. Antonella Sanguinetti from Sparkle, and I'm leading a product management team for the enterprise business.
Hey, my name is Shashi Kiran, and I'm Chief Marketing Officer of a company called Nile.
Perfect. And I mentioned there are two major things that we wanted to talk about and cover in this panel. The first being almost the why of NaaS. Why are we actually looking at this? Why do we think it is the future that we need to push and strive towards? And this is an interesting panel because we've got the kind of direct to enterprise as well as some of the wholesale perspectives covered. So Franck, starting with you from the wholesale perspective and thinking a little bit about the why of the customer experience, what is it that NaaS is bringing to the customers from a wholesale perspective?
Oh, I think we have seen that with an amazing demo from Paul. Customers are waiting for a cloud experience. And NaaS is all about business platform and delivering this customer experience. And if I enter into somehow what we are focusing on the wholesale side is clearly we have two folds. One is to accompany this huge transformation and this important transformation that we are seeing into the B2B. And finally, what we have is a major big platform across the globe with our telco cloud, our backbone, and we can wrap up all this. Of course, Orange Business is taking care of that, developing the most of that inside the B2B market. But having this capability, as it is a business platform, in order to get the right ROI, you need to make ability to deliver that from the retail perspective and the wholesale perspective. So that's one axis that we are focusing on. And the second one is on the mobile side, not a topic that we are addressing so much here in Mplify. And on the mobile operator standpoint, there is a lot of development. The technology is moving very fast. And something we have in the industry is the adoption, because NaaS is facilitated by the adoption of the industry, all the cloud-native technologies. And the adoption of all these technologies allow finally to deliver services that not all the operators are able to deliver. And we have seen that with Paul, providing this open way of delivering the interconnection and the NaaS from the B2B standpoint. And we are trying to do the same somehow into the wholesale side, providing mobile operator, for example, with a groundbreaking solution, which is a core network as a service solution. So we'll come back maybe on that, but I can see that that's an expectation from the market.
Okay. Definitely want to come back on the 5G core as a service piece, but actually skipping down the line, Shashi, because you're covering much more the direct to enterprise and almost some of the branch office and branch compute and branch connectivity services. So I was wondering from your perspective, the customer demands you're seeing, how is NaaS fulfilling those needs?
Yeah, if you look at the branch and campus environments, unlike in the data center or in the WAN, where there's a lot of transformation that's happened over the last decade and a half, 2 decades, where you can consume infrastructure more in a utilitarian manner. The architecture in the branch and campuses is still very 1990-ish. You still have a lot of these boxes from different vendors stacked on top of each other. Each of them have a different management construct. And it's a tremendous amount of complexity that they're still dealing with. And you look at the kind of resources that you apply there, you don't have the expertise even for a Fortune 500 company that has 100 locations, 95 of them don't have IT staff on site. And so you're balancing this huge complexity with not having the resources and the budget nowadays. Nobody has the budget to have a huge CapEx spikes. So these are polarizing things that are hurting the business to move forward quickly. And with AI and other things coming in, the threat vector is also growing. So for us, I think we're looking at NaaS as what our prospects, customers are saying, hey, shrink this operational complexity. We don't want to deal with this box-by-box management across these multitude of vendors. We don't want to have separate suppliers for your wired, wireless, IT, OT management construct, security network. It's just a pain. So can you shrink that operational complexity and thereby also look at, the previous speakers was talking about security being built in, not bolted on. So how do you build this notion of zero trust ground up? And then make it easy to deliver it as a service, because we don't have this army of people to really manage that complexity. So these are the things that we're seeing come our way. And it sort of mirrors what Franck was talking about more from perhaps a wide area and a wholesale perspective. But these are the people that are actually feeling the pain. And that's what we're out here to set and solve.
So really, from your perspective, it's about that simplification, reducing the complexity, so it makes it much easier for particularly small and mid-market businesses that don't have IT resource to manage some of this.
It goes beyond mid-market into enterprise and large enterprise as well. Because think about it, right? The larger an enterprise is, the more complexity it has. Brownfield, you don't get rid of stuff, right? It's spaghetti, which has been built on, and anytime somebody new comes in, they don't want to touch the firewall policy because they don't know what they will break. So it's this spaghetti that's been built out over, sometimes decades, the larger the enterprise is. And I think they're looking to see, how do I shrink that complexity? Because if you shrink the complexity, you automatically shrink the attack surface, right? And so today, everybody is a technology company, everybody is a security company. Everybody is beholden, whether it's a hospital or a financial institutions or a technology company. Data is what everybody is trying to protect, and you want to prevent malware, you want to prevent ransomware. So this complexity, if they can shrink it, it shrinks the attack surface for security. And now you apply AI on top of it. You're applying AI as a force multiplier on top of a very elegant surface area. So I think NaaS is a means to delivering on that promise for mid-market as well as large enterprises, large enterprise. We don't think SMBs have that degree of complexity where they need to overthink it. So we are looking at it as a mid-market to large enterprise place.
And you mentioned security a few times, and the idea of zero trust and the changing attack surface. Antonella, I know from a Sparkle perspective, this is an area that you've been investing in quite a lot around NaaS and making sure that this isn't just a connectivity thing, it's connectivity plus cyber. So I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah. So we have had a very important session this morning. Many things have been said, and security came on most of the topics. And this is why Sparkle, we are in line with the vision that security is not an add-on. There cannot be automation if there is no trust. And this is where we have been working on in parallel in aligning our NaaS platform to the standards of the Mplify, and going hand by hand with the security development. Last year we launched the Quantum Safe, and this has been the first product that was born Mplify NaaS ready from the very beginning. Because the idea is that, as you mentioned, security must be easy and without any friction to enable. It is exactly as any other features of the connectivity. And I want to emphasize one point. about the title of this panel, monetizing the NaaS, how to monetize. In fact, I think NaaS is changing the perspective. Of course, it is a way of consuming the network or consuming the resources, cloud-like, but it's also a way of changing the perspective towards the network. Because as my boss said this morning, the Mplify assets are a treasure, but also our assets are treasures. And the NaaS, I think, allows enterprises or wholesaler to watch this resource as a platform with additional values. And so it's not just about connectivity, but connectivity and something else. And this something else for us includes also security.
And Shashi, I think you're also looking at security as part of an add-on, I suppose, not an add-on to your point, Antonella, but almost integrated and ingrained in that NaaS proposition.
Yeah, we don't view connectivity as being decoupled from security. There are two sides of the same coin, and today in this day and age, it is about secure networking, and what we talk about is secure NaaS as a result, right? It's a shift from the philosophy that we have had previously saying, hey, this is the network, and here are these other 5 devices that need to manage security. Because the more links you bring in, the weaker the chain becomes, right? And so how do you kind of look at something a lot more simplistic, which is what I meant by reducing the attack surface. And to Antonella's point, I think we view this as sort of secure networking, and calling that out itself is a bit of a paradox, because networking should be secure by default.
Right. And I'm throwing this out a little bit off the cuff, so don't hold me to this in the audience, but we've kind of spoken about security, we've spoken about the need for simplicity. Another S to do with NaaS, I think, is probably speed and speed of delivery. And I know, Salma, from your perspective in Bell, you've been doing quite a lot of work on how does NaaS deliver more speed of experience for the customer?
Yeah, so that's I'm echoing Sashi on that, on the complexity. So when we're talking about the complexity, we're talking about the complexity of the product. The product portfolio, they're not only multiple boxes within one. If we take one product, there is also siloed product portfolio, different operational team, different delivery models. So if a customer, as an example, they want to have 2 sets of products delivered to the same location, there need to be coordination, all of that. So the speed of the delivery, it can be months. That's how it's happening today in the connectivity services. So coming to NaaS, that's where we're, with the automation that we're bringing to the table, we're moving from months to days to remove all that milestone that from the code to the buy process to the activation to the different team coordinating that delivery. As well as on every on-demand feature, the way that we're delivering at Bell, we have the basic is the internet, and every on-demand feature is real-time activated. So we don't need to send again a track roll or anything. So everything is real-time. So that's how we're enabling the feature for the customer when they need them, and they can activate it or deactivate it, and we don't have an extra cost from our side, from a Bell perspective, and we can lower the cost for the customer as well.
And I suppose that leads maybe to another S, which is scalability
Exactly.
of the proposition, right? Because you can start from a base, but then you can add and scale and spin up and spin down more effectively.
Exactly, and that's one of the pain points. I think someone was talking about that earlier, is the rigid term that we have today within all the telecommunication companies. So we have rigid contract, which is long-term, and we need to have that. It's because it costs us something to deliver the service. So if we're lowering the cost, that's how we can offer that flexibility and the scaling up and down without losing money on the table.
And just from a few of the conversations I was having yesterday, there are still some of the operators that they're moving towards NaaS, but they want to understand where is the customer demand? You know, are the customers ready to adopt? Because there might be some leading operators that are thinking about it, or some leading enterprises, I should say, that are thinking about it, but still a longer tail that say, well, actually, my traditional model of networking is fine. So I was wondering, Antonella, from your perspective, how are you seeing some of that customer demand accelerating and the maturity of customers accelerate around NaaS?
So I will use an example, an experience that I got a month ago. I was at some weeks ago at Capacity in London, and very few young people came to the booth, and I thought they were students. In reality, one of them was the CEO of a very important startup in the Middle East. And And they asked me some IP transit links. How much do you need? 100 gig, 400 gig? No, 1 terabit, at least. But we want automated. Why? Because our company, they are a hosting company for gaming in the Middle East, has a differentiator, the fact that they can deliver in hours what others can deliver in days. And that was very impressive to me. You know, this is exactly, they are our future customers. And for them, it's natural to ask that the network follows their needs in terms of timing and delivering process and so on. So that confirmed that there is a demand. It was really impressive. On the other hand, the enterprise demand is a trigger for us to innovate. When we discuss, Darius, I mentioned the fact that there is a lot of investment for service provider to deliver on NaaS. Because we talk about the beauty of this and the benefits and so on, but there is a lot of investment. So the monetization comes not only for selling the features, but also from the streamline of our processes and from the innovation that the NaaS brings with us. So to reply to your question, how does this comes back for the service provider value, I would say it helps us streamline the processes that sooner or later we have to do if you want to follow the trend of AI or whatever will be in the future, and also helps us changing the mindset and the vision and innovate faster.
And Franck, from your perspective, are you seeing kind of your customers from the wholesale side, the actual operators, adopting NaaS models and NaaS capabilities fast enough to meet some of the demand that others are seeing from the enterprise space?
Yes, when you look at it from a wholesale perspective, finally you have 2 steps behind the customer demand, the end customer demand. So you can be behind or you can be in advance because we are forecasting that this demand will come. And when we look at how we started, and at that time I was in the Orange business side, and Benjamin explained where Orange business is standing on that. But we did at the same time 2 things. One was doing the go-to-market and the productization side onto the retail market, B2B. And in the meantime, we were preparing the right infrastructure behind. And coming back to what Selma was saying about we need to lean the cost, we need to lean the process, we need to automate. And so we have built on automating all our infrastructure and backbone to deliver a quite global and across the world telco cloud infrastructure with a backbone and so on. And so we have done that in the same time. And this allows us today to move to facilitating for operators their go-to-market, accelerating their go-to-market, facilitating the value of their value proposition, because all the operators have not the ability at Bell or Sparkle or PCCW or Orange Business to invest in such an infrastructure. So it's where we are standing with our core network as a service.
Yeah, and I think this is probably a good time to talk about that, because as well as wanting to cover a little bit more about the customer experience that NaaS can bring, we also want to talk about the new revenue opportunities that it can bring. And you guys have been looking at this 5G core as a service and how you can provide that as a service to operators. Yeah,
absolutely. And when we have looked after the market, say what could we bring as an additional line of revenue? We are doing on the wholesale side already a lot of revenue on the mobile area, facilitating all their roaming with the enabler, could be the coverage with roaming sponsor, a lot of services. And at one point in time, we have seen that we can go up into the value chain. And so we have thought about what could be the use cases. So either you are a small mobile operator, or you are quite installed with a lot of important customer base, a mobile operator. We can think about different use cases. For the small mobile operators, moving to 5G SA is quite an investment. And this investment could be long. So benefit could be time to market. Benefit could be you don't have to invest a lot. You don't have to also to find the right skills to move into that direction. And for the bigger one, if you have a mobile operator, like you can find, because we have the chance to be only 4 in the US, with tens of millions of customers, so lucky you are, is you probably don't want to play with your core network to launch some specific offering, whether on IoT or dedicated to the B2B and so on. So we say there is a place where also a very big and installed mobile operator could benefit from that. So we have decided to move forward on creating this core network as a service solution, which is totally a SaaS solution. So it's fully OpEx model, digital experience, API experience. Also on the mobile side, there is a lot of API coming from the different industry bodies. So it's somehow a way to ease the adoption of 5G SA and the different use cases that you can have. And again, it's here to facilitate to our mobile operator customers also their value proposition, whether it is a standard 5G SA type of solution, whether it is their development into the IoT market, whether it is a mobile private network type of things, the fixed wireless access. And so we are seeing a lot of use case, a lot of interest. It's obliged us to also to, it's a game changer for us. When you are selling a 100 gig or 400 gig transatlantic, it's something that's quite easy to monitor, to manage. The customer has probably 2 or 3 of them, maybe with other service providers. So if the 100 gigs fall down, you have time to repair. Whereas when your core network is down, having gone through these kind of things when I was into the mobile activity, you need someone to repair it and to go fast into putting back the service on. So it's changing a lot of things within the company, and it's where you are moving from selling connection to moving into the NaaS and the SaaS type of activity, which is oblige you as a service provider, whether it is on the retail side or wholesale side, to change a lot of things within your company.
Yeah, and even we're starting to see now with 5G SA on the mobile side, some very early examples like Telstra's dynamic 5G of monetization of mobile networks with an enterprise-grade SLA, which has been something that in the fixed world we've done for a long time, but actually from mobile is quite new. And I think it's part of that NaaS. Maybe it's another S of NaaS is SLAs for mobile. So yeah, I think we're starting to see some of that early opportunity as a new revenue boost as well. So we're probably halfway through, and we've spoken more about the why of NaaS and some of the benefits that we can see for enterprise customers, the new revenues. Flipping a little bit more to the how, and actually coming to you, Salma, because you mentioned going from months down to hours or days from the shift towards NaaS. And I think you mentioned in the prep that this has taken pretty much an overhaul, starting afresh and starting from scratch. It would be really interesting to understand how have you shifted that team into a full NaaS model such that you can deliver on that kind of experience?
Yeah, so before we started with NaaS, we were thinking about automating our own product, the one that's existing today. It was costing a lot, like it was not doable, and we said, no, we're not doing that. So this is where we started thinking about NaaS, and one of the principles, it was a greenfield. So we're not using any of the existing legacy OSS, BSS, even from the network side. So the key to success is really to, even from the network side, to have a brand new network that is easy to automate. Having to not leverage, we said that we're not leveraging any of the existing IT system, but we were forced to use some of them at least for the launch, because it's impacting the existing products. So that's why we have some of the limitations, so we need to use them. But the biggest success is a shift on the mindset. So we need to think that we're not selling bandwidth anymore. We're really selling an experience. So we're shifting from a product or project model to a product life cycle. How can we sell that experience to the customer, offer it to the customer? And we're thinking how we can, we're not owning a system, we're not owning a domain, we're not owning an operational team, we're delivering the product to the customer. The second thing is to start small and grow later on. So we don't need to involve everyone. Really start with a small team, incubate that, and then once we know how it's working, that's where we can expand it beyond the existing team. And that goes from all the impacted teams, from an operational, from network, and from an IT standpoint. So that's how we're approaching.
That makes sense. And what are some of the challenges or the barriers that you've met along the way that you've had to kind of overcome to actually get to where you are now? Is it cultural skills, technology, all of the above?
All of them. I will start with the biggest one is really the cultural change, how to ensure that people understand the vision and where we're going, and we're not redoing another product that already exists. So it's a brand new concept, so we need to think out of the box and not leverage what we have. Having the team say, oh no, let's not leverage what's existing, let's build something new, innovation, that's really one of the biggest hurdles that we've been facing. Following or not some of the enterprise architecture guidance, that's also one of the hurdles that we're facing to how can we balance between how we can offer that experience versus following what needs to be done from a system standpoint. And then third is really how to make it operational, like within the ecosystem at the end, and that's where we're at right now.
Perfect. And maybe picking up on the penultimate point you made, because I know, Antonella, this is an area that you're quite focused on, which is how do you build and balance and drive towards the standards while also making sure you're meeting the enterprise needs and you're moving fast enough, etc. So how do you build towards standardization and harmonization while also making sure you can innovate?
Yes. Indeed, we had a different approach than some because we work in parallel with the legacy systems and legacy, which are not legacy, it's existing systems, and trying to update them, having the add-ons that were needed. Indeed, standardization for us has been the starting point. If you ask back the question, how did you manage to introduce the NaaS platform, that the foundation was the standard. So the whole product team and the CIO team started participating to the Mplify and MEF meetings and reading the standards and so on, and building on that. So for us, the standardization is the foundation. And then on top of them, we have been listening to what the customers were needed. Was asking, because in some of the cases, the customer didn't know that they were asking a NaaS feature. They were asking on-demand push button to increase the bandwidth, or flexible contract, or tools to change the connectivity to cloud. So listening to what they have been asking for the last, indeed, a couple of months, and unifying everything on a standard platform has been our path, our journey to NaaS.
And Shashi, you've been trying to take a more vertically integrated approach and definitely move away from a legacy business model towards more of a NaaS business model in the work that you're doing as well. I don't know if you could share learnings or updates, I suppose, on how you've taken that shift and you've really moved business models. This isn't just a new product, this is a fundamental shift.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, because NaaS isn't a new feature. It's a new operational model. And when you go down the path of a new operational model, that's when you run into cultural issues, or even somebody understanding how this works in this case versus the thing they've been used to for the past 20 years. So there is a fair bit of education involved. And particularly in the realm that we play in, which is more in the local area environment, we do run into confusion of NaaS with the providers and wholesalers. So there's a different degree of education that's required. And unfortunately, we haven't landed on a new terminology there. It's perhaps the most intuitive way to describe it as this is secure network as a service. So we're stuck with that. But I think the key thing here is we talked about how do you really deliver on that experience, because when you talk about as a service, you're taking accountability and responsibility for the service experience, which is an outcome. And for us to take responsibility for that outcome, we need to own the problem statement end-to-end in a way, right? So that's where having the hardware, the software, the operational model, and being able to look at bringing an autonomous way of delivering on some of those things We try to take ownership of all of these different things and not parse it off to 4 or 5 different entities. So that way the experience becomes much more seamless, security becomes more seamless. We talked about speed or agility, and that becomes faster, whether it's in terms of activating services or troubleshooting when something goes wrong. You need to be able to, speed is essential in both cases, and then the savings aspect of it, right? So I call these the 4 S's. We talked about security, we talked about simplicity, third is speed, and the fourth is the savings that result with NaaS. And it also, how does it help our partners? Because many of them are taking what we have under the hood, and then they are activating services on top of it. Can we get them to a faster path of profitability? Can we help with their margins? Can we help them roll out services with a faster activation cycle? So these are the things that we think about, but there's a fair amount of education involved. But once people get exposed to it, they try it, then they really love it. And it's getting to that phase where they get their hands on and they see a proof of concept. That's important. And till then, a lot of the peer level engagements that they have with people that have adopted it and they like it and they're willing to speak about it, that's extremely useful as well.
And who do you think the onus is on to drive that education and to build the harmonization of what NaaS can do? If you know what I mean, how do we make sure that enterprises have a common language?
Yeah.
When you say NaaS, they know what you mean, and they know that we're talking about the same things, and it isn't, oh, well, one operator thinks of NaaS as X and another operator thinks of NaaS as Y. Who's in charge of driving that, and who's accountable for it?
Look, I think it's a collective effort in some ways. There are nuances to it. So if I draw parallels with what happened with the cloud, shift to cloud, let's say 15 years ago, for 10 years, AWS had almost a monopoly because everybody else said, hey, this is a model that's not going to work. And even the big cloud providers today, they weren't really in the race till it became something they couldn't ignore. But all the meantime, you had these developers going, swiping credit cards and getting their EC2 instances activated. And you had this notion of shadow IT. And everybody was trying to educate people in terms of, hey, the benefits of cloud and whatnot, right? So till it became much more mainstream. I think we're in somewhat of a similar phase today. We have these early adopters who are convinced, they see the parallels with SaaS as an example, and they want the same simplicity, speed, change management. But we need forums such as this as well that are helping elevate it and take it outside of this room. I would say the people in this room are mostly converts. So how do you take this religion of NaaS and take it outside of the room and make it easy for them to understand with, in a way that they can intuitively bring it into their normal life cycle. So there is some work ahead of it, but we're underway.
And if we can do if we can leverage on Shashi very shortly, and taking my second hat is Mplify is doing. We have a clear definition. We try to skip to that. And of course, as you were saying, we need to advocate that more globally to make sure that both companies, and we are doing that with ALC and other operators and everyone, is sticking and enriching the definition we try to set up into the industry.
Perfect. So we've got a couple minutes left. What I wanted to wrap up with was, given the title of the panel is how to deliver on the NaaS experience and unlock those revenue opportunities, if you could summarize a learning, kind of each of you, for a takeaway almost for the audience of how do you deliver on the NaaS experience? And start with you, Franck, maybe.
So I think very important. First, it's a journey. Secondly, I think very important is delivery is one thing, and you mentioned that, Salma, but thinking about the operational side, because thinking about operational side is making sure that you have all what it needs to deliver the best customer experience by lowering the cost. And if you lower the cost, you can do a very good offering. You can be competitive and you can monetize a lot. And that's great from this panel is usually we are speaking NaaS about how we can deliver, how can we go faster and so on. We are starting to speak about operational. And speaking about operational, it means that the first step is already down. We are moving into NaaS into reality, and that's a good thing.
Salma, from your perspective?
Yeah, from my perspective, NaaS is not just a technology project. It's a business transformation, going back to what you mentioned, Franck. So from a delivery side, from the operational, lowering the cost, that's one of the things that will, from us, from my perspective, we can go after, we can have the growth in the mid-market by having on-demand feature that customer can adapt when they need and pay only for when they need them. That's really it from my side.
For me, for the sake of time, is stable vision, standardization, and stepwise approach.
Perfect. More S's. And Shashi?
Yeah, I'll just say, look, since it's a new operational model and a new philosophy in some sense, lower the barrier to entry and increase the barrier to exit, right? And everything in between, make it extremely delightful.
Perfect. Well, thanks all for your time. And if there are any questions, I think grab people after the show and grab them over lunch.
Thank you.
Great.